Okay, what we're doing here is I'm putting the oil filter in, but before you do the oil filter, you gotta drain things. Move that pan a second. You want a good sized pan, because this thing holds quite a bit of. Okay. And I'm gonna loosen that. And those get quite tight because they bind up with the aluminum, and it takes a good wrench to get them out. But I'll tell you what that wrench size is, but that's a special tool right there. And I got that. You can get it from Albert's. I think Post 55 has them. Flying Spare has them. Anyway, you need that to fit up in there like that. And you want it way in there because that's a tapered fitting. Now this squirts way out. So you want the edge of the drain pan. And I'm going to get my hand up at the top. Try not to get too much oil on myself, but that probably isn't going to be an easy thing to happen. Okay, and there she comes. If you can see that. And I'm going to push the pan back because it's gradually going to drip, but I drove this car to Tahoe in California from St. Louis, and it did quite well. Drove it 80 miles an hour or so most of the way there. But this thing has a sealing ring on it. There's the sealing ring. And it's aluminum. And there's the fitting that comes out. And there's the end that has the taper that I was talking about. And that's your plug. And I've got a new, right there, prove it. That's a new one from my kit from Prestige Parts, so I'm going to put that on there, but I'm going to let that drain out a while. And the other thing is I let this car set a long time. I let it set for several days. The reason I let it set several days is because all the oil drains down in the pan. You want to check the oil when it's cold. If you got it all pumped up in the engine, it'll read about a quart difference. So you'll have it, if you fill it up when it's hot, you're going to show a lot of, well, it'll show full, but you'll have a quart of extra oil in it. And it'll come out the seals on the front and back of the engine. So I run mine about a quart low and it does just fine. So anyway, there you go. Okay, I'm over here where the oil filter is, and that's a 7/8 inch socket. That's a good size bolt on there, and that thing might spin when it comes down. The whole thing's spinning. I got a little plastic tub under it here, so anyway, that's as much as I need to do with a wrench. These are a little tricky to get in, but getting out, you just unscrew the big bolt. And the whole thing usually stays sealed and comes off in one piece. We'll take that over to the bench and see what we got. Okay, trying to get my selfie stick from wobbling. The subject today is oil filters. Unfortunately, I will not pay the $90 to get an example of an original Rolls-Royce type. You've got the Crossland filter. And it was the cheapest. And I've had this for a while, but it's got big gaps in the filter. And I mean paper behind here. This has kind of got less holes in it, so you're going to have less circulation. So all in all, I don't really recommend buying these. And they come with just a sampling, of the pieces you need to really replace it correctly. So my worst choice is Crossland, so I'm getting rid of that. Boom, we're gone. Okay, what we got here now left over after I've rejected one is we've got the Post 55 filter, and it comes with the rubber on this side, and it's got basically all the materials that you need. It's got your, well, I opened this one. This one's got the sealing washer in it, which has a little rubber. They've got a name for these, I forget what it is. And it's got this little bevel piece here, and we'll talk about the metal that goes on that. It's got another little sealing ring. And both of these kits, because they go on the 70s cars, they get this big rubber seal. We won't need that for the Silver Cloud. It gets this thin, it's not an O-ring, it's a square seal. So anyway, both kits from Albers, and this is Albers replacement, of course, and Post 55. You can see there's a lot of holes drilled in both of them. This one actually is closer to the identical, I mean the old Rolls-Royce one, this one made from Prestige parts. And so I would use either one of these in my car, but I do like the one. It's a little bit better, firmer quality. This one's a little thinner, and the material, it's like a cardboard, and this is actually kind of a different. I like this material a lot better. And this, I don't know if you can see inside, but it's got good veins that go way in and metal holes. So my choice is what Albers sells as aftermarket, and here's the thing there, Prestige parts. Google them. But basically, that Prestige Parts is one of the manufacturers that makes a good quality part. Post 55 makes good stuff too, but that would be my choice. That would be my second choice, and you saw my rejection. So I'm going to actually put this one in my car now, the one from Albers, Prestige Parts. So there you go. Okay, I laid the parts out here. You got the bolts, and that was a 7/8 inch head there. It's a big bolt. Runs through it. There's a seal here with a little rubber thing in, and that's the new one we got from Prestige Parts. Then the oil filter goes on. Okay, you got to make sure this area is clean and this area right under here is clean before you put this seal on. But you put the seal on, shove the bolt through. There is a rubber seal that goes on again on the inside. There's a washer that I never wiped all the oil off of. There's a spring. There's this little cup, and if you don't have it on there, it isn't going to work right, because the spring will push down into this piece of rubber. And this thing actually sets inside that, and the spring sets in that. So if you don't have that piece of metal in there, which actually goes in between them, and then we'll talk about getting this in the car, but this is the O-ring that goes up in the mount on the car itself, the engine itself. So that doesn't go in the oil filter assembly, but once again, there are your parts. And I'm going to go ahead and assemble them. I don't have my selfie stick here, so you're just going to have to imagine it for yourself. Okay, I'm going to zoom in here. This is actually a filter that I got from Albers. I didn't realize it was Prestige part. It was aftermarket. That's what I chose to put in the car before I left the Tahoe. And lo and behold, there's the new one. But I shoved all my parts in there with the bolts, and I'll hold it up there. Maybe you can see the springs and all the washers and stuff in there. But now I'm going to shove this filter in. And of course, the filter here goes in on that end. And that rubber in there is going to be a seal up the top. So I'm going to go ahead and shove that in there, like so. And then it's ready to put back on the car. Got all my parts put back in it, and we'll shove her on the car. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put this little O-ring, actually it's a square O-ring, but you got to make sure you get it going in there flat, like that. Okay, got that in there. And I'm going to get a screwdriver and push it up in there. Okay, with the screwdriver, I'm just going to take and make sure I press it up in there. Yeah, those could get sideways, they could get twisted. It's kind of a secret there. Is get that in there and look at it real close. Make sure you got it straight. And then I'm taking my oil filter and I'm putting it right there. And I'm see, right there, I got it caught on the lip going in. Because at this stage, I just like to make, but gotta hope that wasn't in the way the whole time. Okay, for that oil tool we were talking about, this is a 5/8. You see that there? 5/8, and that's the special oil tool. It's got a ring in it. You want it inserted all the way because it does have a taper to it. That's out of my toolbox. I had that CAD plated, but I still use it because that's the tool you need. Okay, I got my oil filter in, so I'm back over here and I got my new ring, if you can see it there. Got my new aluminum ring on my plug, and I'm going to screw that back in there. You know, I put 4,500 miles on this going to California and back from St. Louis. I drove to Nashville before that, St. Louis to Nashville, and drove to Kansas City before that. I had about 4,500 miles on this oil change, but then again, 4,500 miles isn't, by the way, I would move this oil pan over, because if you happen to drop this fitting, this tool, it'll fall in that oil and you'll have a mess. And I give those a good snug turn so you can see what happened there. But anyway, the underbelly generally looks in pretty good condition. I got a couple of little questionable oil places, but if a Rolls Royce doesn't leak, then it's not a Rolls Royce. Yeah, some guy had a Cloud out there that had his engine rebuilt, and he said it didn't leak a drop of oil. And I looked at him and said, "You got oil in it?" So that's the running joke. Okay, under all the dashes, there's a lever. That locks the hood right there. Okay, and there's one on this side, and if you look at the other side of the dash over there, you can kind of see there's one over there. But anyway, to unlatch it, you push it down, all the way down, and it takes a little physical strength. It just doesn't pop down. And then we're going to go on out here to the bonnet. And after you unlatch that, I want to zoom out and zoom in. I can grab the bonnet, simply raise it, and this thing pops out and in, and this rod will hold it up. Next thing I do is I grab this and bring this down, and this I unscrew right here to get the air cleaner out of the way. And that air cleaner folds up like such, and it connects to that little socket there, fits in there. I'm going to zoom in and kind of zoom around, but that holds it up, and that way we can get into our oil dipstick and our oil fill over here. So this is the left side of the engine compartment. Okay, the next thing, you see the oil cap. Let me zoom out. We're on the left side underneath the cowl, the bonnet, and you'll see there's a snap here. Some people have them on the other way, but I have them on that way because my air conditioner cable gets in the way. And it's getting in the way right now, but anyway, I'm going to stick that in there. But this thing, I normally pull out of there when I do this, my air conditioning cable. And so I got my funnel in that hole. You can see it real good. And then I'm going to fill it up with Shell Rotel. I used to use a premium racing oil with zinc and everything in it, but I went to diesel truck oil, and I use 15W40. We're going in the fall September time frame here, and I'm going to drive down to Louisiana, so 1040 for that kind of temperature should be good. In the winter, I could change it up, but I don't drive it much in the winter. Okay, now that I've filled everything back up there, I've actually checked it a couple of times as I filled it up. You got to get that started, and then you push it, and it snaps on there. You should have a good cork cap underneath that. But that's there, so I'm going to shove my air conditioning cable back, or hose back down there. But this is where you change the oil. And if you can see down in there, I don't know if you can, but there's a hole, the dipstick comes out. And right there, we're right at the max. So we're good. Now, as we pump that oil into that oil filter, it'll fill up, so we're going to go down a little bit, but I run mine down off of full. I don't have it on maximum. I have it down about a ½ an inch is where I normally run it. The minimum line is like 2 inches down, so you're not in danger of starving the engine of oil. Okay, here we go, my fireside chat here. I'm leaning back on my couch in my man cave, and I made some notes that I thought might be interesting on the video, so here goes. After you get all this done and you got your oil in it, start your car and watch the oil pressure come up. I start my car and then I stop it after about 10 seconds or 20 seconds, because if you get that oil filter on a little bit crooked, when I described it goes up and it caught on that lip. If you get it past that lip, you can actually rattle the can around in the little ring in the metal that it goes in before it goes up. So once you get it past the lip, you can rattle it, and then you can screw it up and it goes right in, and you can feel it compressing the rubber. If you hit the actual mount on the car, that oil filter just sticks. So anyway, start your car, stop it, make sure your plug's not leaking. You don't have, if you get any leak out, you can tighten your oil filter a little more. But check for leaks and start it up, and then run it a while, and then you're fine to go. I recycle. I put the oil in jugs and I recycle that, and you know, I take it to oil places that do oil changes. I've got one that I do our regular cars with. I don't do oil changes on them, of course, but they take it and recycle it. They actually get 50 cents a gallon or something for it, so they take it freely as long as it's clean oil and doesn't have antifreeze and things like that in it. Well, clean oil, I mean it's dirty oil. The other thing is Albers now represents, or they're a rep of Prestige Parts, and I kept seeing boxes of Prestige Parts coming in from different people, and different people have repped them, but they're a separate manufacturer over in England. At least I think they're in the UK. Well, I know they're in the UK, but anyway, you can order directly from them and get it shipped from the UK, or you can just sit there and get it from Albers, and they take care of customs and all that. So, I find it's easier to get it from Albers, if you're ordering those parts. But you can go onto their website, and they've got quite a few parts that you can go and check out there, and that's Prestige Parts. Post 55, I'd also like to note, they've got all kinds of rubber trim and stuff on their site. I always like to promote these car guys. And I'm an engineer by education. I'm retired now. I ran some engineering companies for many years and did a lot of business and finance. Didn't do a lot of engineering actually, but that was my beginning education. And I'm a private individual and citizens. People are always calling asking if I'm some kind of shop and want to work on their car. I have worked on buddies around here, cars in the club, in the Rolls-Royce Club, which I do highly recommend. It's fairly inexpensive. You don't have to have a car, and there's all kinds of neat stuff on their website. So they have a lot of activities that you can come to and participate in all kinds of activities. So I do recommend that site too. So that kind of wraps up my fireside chat. So I hope this was educational. And I had one other item. When we were in Tahoe, we won first place in the Cloud Touring division. And I mentioned the Rolls-Royce Club. I've had that car and it's done very well, but every time I take it to a Rolls-Royce events, they judge it on a 300-point scale. And I mean, it's, hose clamps and hose types. And I mean, they judge it from the standpoint of about everything with 300 points. And every time I get that judging sheet, I buy the clamp or I try to improve the car. So over 4 or 5 meets, I've managed to work myself up to first place against mostly the East Coast Tahoe guys. Last year I took second place in the event against Larry DeRocher's old car. I lost to him by a couple of points because I drive my car a lot and I got a lot of nicks and dings in the paint. But, if I had a new paint job, I'd beat his car. But anyway, that kind of sums up why you should join the club and why that judging can be so important if you're one of these guys that like to improve their cars. So, signing off.